Welcome to the third video of module number 2, which is a continuation from the previous video. In this video, we're going to be looking at a couple of things here. One, we will look at curriculum development processes, the basic principles in curriculum development. We will look at the Tyler curriculum module and the TABA curriculum module. Before we go into the developmental processes of curriculum, there are 4 questions that curriculum responds to as part of the development process. They are: what educational purposes should the school seek to attain? What educational experiences can be provided that are likely to attain these purposes? How can these educational experiences be effectively organized? And lastly, how can we determine whether to what extent these purposes are being attained? The first topic is curriculum development processes. There are a number of them. We look at the philosophy of education, the goals and aims, the general instructional objectives, specific instructional objectives and outcomes, assessment, task analysis and content selection, and learning activities. There are 9 principles though that are connected with curriculum development. Let's look at them closely here. One is the selection of subject matter. There are 3 things here we need to look at here. Criteria, which refers to the relevance, the importance, and the priority. The scope, the amount, the depth of coverage, concentration of the curriculum. And thirdly, the sequence, which is the hierarchy and progression of complexities. The second principle is continuity, how things continue from one to the other and the connection that are made between those things. Then there's balance, evaluation. Under evaluation we have the content, which leads to the relevancy, organization and completeness of the curriculum. We have the process, in other words, how well was the design piloted. We have the participants, the effects on faculty, students, and staff. The outcomes, we need to evaluate the outcomes. The effects on real world. The 5th principle here is the nature of the learners. Then we have the needs of the learners. And some of those needs are cognitive development, linguistic development, psychosocial development, moral and affective development, professional and vocational focus. The 7th principle, the best teaching methods that are available. We need to look at the faculty development also, and of course the resources, the facilities and the budget. In a curriculum planning cycle, there are 4 main things here that we need to look at: needs assessment, design, implementation, and output. From the design, we have the implementation. After the implementation, we have the output. As a result of the output, we take a look at the needs assessment. So it's a cyclic process as we look at this curriculum planning cycle. We are going to look at 2 important modules as we look at curriculum development. The first one is the Tyler module. Tyler recommended that curriculum planners identify general objectives by gathering data from 3 sources: the student as sources, the society as source, and the subject matter as source. After identifying numerous general objectives, the planners refine them by filtering them through two screens: the educational and social philosophy of the school and the psychology of learning. The end product would be precise educational objectives. When you look at Tyler's curriculum, we see three sources: students, society, and subject. They are all leading towards the tentative general objectives, so they all lead to general objectives. The general objectives lead to the philosophy of education and the psychology of learning. Those two impact the precise instructional objectives of the curriculum. So in a nutshell here, we see the rationale behind the curriculum development here by Tyler. Tyler has the curriculum cycle: the analysis, design, implement, and evaluate. So after you analyze, then you design. Once you design, you implement. As a result of your implementation, you could evaluate to see how well you did. And then the cycle continues again with analysis and so on here. So this represents Tyler curriculum cycle. Now the TABA model is also a very important model that we need to look at here. Hilda TABA took what is known as a graduate approach to curriculum development. She believed that the curriculum should be designed by teachers rather than handed down by higher authority. Now, some teachers may like that, while others may prefer to have it handed down to them. The module is intended to design courses down to lessons in areas where students are supposed to learn how to think. TABA identified three inductive thinking skills. They are concept formation, what we refer to as concept learning. There's the interpretation of data and the application of principles. So these three thinking skills are identified in the TABA module. TABA's inductive module lists the 5-step sequence for accomplishing curriculum change. These are as follows here: producing pilot units, which means that we have to diagnose the needs, formulation of objectives, selection of content, organization of content, selection of learning experiences, organization of learning activities, determination of what to evaluate and of the ways and means of doing it, and checking for balance and sequence. So these here are the pilot units that TABA inductive module lists there. Secondly, testing of the experimental units, revising and consultation, developing a framework, installing and disseminating news units. And here we see this little diagram here, when knowledge impacts the dynamics of learning groups, and also the dynamics of learning groups impacts the knowledge. Similarly, dynamics of learning groups impacts inquiry. Inquiry also impacts the dynamics of learning groups. Inquiry impacts knowledge. Knowledge also impacts inquiry. So we see the connection between knowledge, inquiry, and the dynamics of learning group involved in TABA's module. We have a small group written assignments. This is an assignment that is to be done by the small groups, so the 8 different groups here. Take some time to go through the following 3 documents. These documents are on the Moodle platform, and they are also identified in the lecture notes. But the 3 documents are Continuous Curriculum Development and Approach for Quality Curriculum Development in the Caribbean. It's a PDF document where we're going to see the Caribbean perspective being shared in this article. I wanted to go through that. There's also another PDF document, Constructing Appropriate Curriculum. It will give you an overview of constructing curriculum. And then we have a long PowerPoint, the nature and scope of curriculum development. This is a very important document that has to be that you would go through to help you in this written assignment. Now, using the information from those documents as a foundation, and research briefly the development of curriculum and instruction in Antigua and Barbuda in one of the periods listed below. Groups who are attached are to research that period alone. So, each group will answer 3 questions for each period. What was the curriculum and instruction like then? How significantly different is it from today's curriculum and instruction? How was it developed? So these are the 3 questions that needs to be looked at and answered as you look at each of the different era. The first era is the colonial days. So group 1 and group 5 would look at colonial days and answer those 3 questions here. Research and answer those questions. I am asking that the first person's name in his group kind of coordinate the working of the group. So Ms. Barnes is going to work with group 1 or coordinate group 1. Mr. Brown, Nigel Brown, will coordinate group 5. Then we have the pre and post World Wars. Group 2 and group 6. Now, by the way, I want the groups to work individually, even though the 2 groups are looking at the same era. Please work individually. Again, Ms. Cathy Brown will coordinate group 2, and Shimura James will coordinate group 6. Then we look at pre-independence, before the independence of Antigua and Barbuda. Group 3 under Ms. Generis Brown, and group 7 under Ms. Charmaine Farrell. So we have the 3 groups so far. Then the 4th group here would be post-independence. Group 4, where Ms. Charles would kind of coordinate that group, and group 8, where we have Ms. Daniel Bradford coordinating the group 8. I will need only 1 submission from each group, where all group members should be involved in its research and development. So what would happen is that each member of the group would play a part in finding information, researching information, and coming together and answering the question, and so we have 1 submission from each group. As I mentioned, the first name of each group is to coordinate the work of the group, and that name is attached, and I mentioned those names earlier on. If the 2 groups will be working on 1 specific period, I want each group to work independently. Each group submission will be posted on the course webpage, not only on the course webpage but also on the Moodle platform also. What will happen is that all the submissions from all groups will be submitted, so each of you will be able to look at the submissions, and later on we'll react to them in a forum that will be posted sometime next week. I would like this to be submitted by Thursday, January 5th at 12 midnight. A submission will also be made, as I mentioned earlier on the Moodle platform, as well as sending a copy to the course email address. Thank you very much.